Thank you.
At 7:47 exactly. Let's go straight to Carol.
Now, as a high school teenager, Brad Keller had no interest in music whatsoever. He'd never even played a piano.
Well, after a remarkable journey this summer, Brad won the second series of Channel 4's The Piano, which showcases the UK's best amateur pianists, after he wrote an emotional piece for his foster parents.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Breakfast with Sally Nugent and John Kay.
Our headlines for you today. Weeks of warning the public about the state of Britain's finances. Rachel Reeves will use her first Labour conference speech as Chancellor to strike a more optimistic tone today as ministers seek to move on from the row over political donations. She'll promise a budget to rebuild Britain, but her key message risks being overshadowed by the criticism over the decision to means test winter fuel payments. Here's our political correspondent, Harry Farley. Well, our chief political correspondent, Henry Zeffman, is at the Labour conference in Liverpool for us. And Sri Lanka's new president has been sworn in at a ceremony in the country's executive capital, Colombo. That dozens of Israeli airstrikes have hit Hezbollah targets in the south and east of the country this morning. The Israeli military has warned residents to move away from areas used by the Iran-backed group. Our Middle East correspondent Hugo Bachega joins us now from practices at the organisation. It'll consider the views of thousands of current sub-postmasters and also those claiming compensation. Well, our business correspondent Theo Leggett is out.
Brad single that he was talking about, Evan Frank, is out now.
And it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it really is.
Nearly 8 o'clock. Time to get the news, the travel and the weather. Where you are.
Kev, good to see you.
It is 8:30 exactly. That means it's time to get the news, the travel and the weather where you are. You'll be in trouble now. Public about the state of Britain's finances. Rachel Reeves will use her first Labour conference speech as Chancellor to strike a more optimistic note. As ministers seek to move on from the row over political donations, she will promise a budget to rebuild Britain, but her key message risks being overshadowed by the criticism over the decision to means test winter fuel payments. Here's our political correspondent. Well, our chief political correspondent, Henry Zeffman, is at the Labour conference in Liverpool, and we're going to be speaking to the Chancellor here live at 7:30. Now, the United Nations has warned that the Middle East is on the brink of imminent catastrophe amid fears of an all-out war. Is in practices at the organisation. It will consider the views of thousands of current sub-postmasters and also those claiming compensation. Here's our business correspondent, Emma Simpson.
So bad on the motorway. I mean, you could hardly see anything. It was quite frightening because it was, just full on.
Do you know who's going to get all of those counties right?
Yes.
Carol, thank goodness. Well, the Metropolitan Police have said they are aware of various allegations of sexual offences made over a number of years in relation to the late Mohammed Al-Fayed, which were reported to them. They say if any further information comes to light, it will be assessed and investigated accordingly. Lots of them leading with
the young people who did have one.
Young people. There is a gorgeous story in the papers today, a brilliant picture of someone we know very well taking part in a very, very special occasion. We had Sandy Toksvig on the show last Tuesday, I think it was. We had a lovely chat to her. She was busy this weekend because she married, and when I say married, I mean she performed the ceremony. She married Bjorn Ulvaeus.
She was the celebrant.
She was the celebrant.
What are you doing this
What are you doing next? That's always the next question, is what are you doing next?
We'll ask that question of the various people on the sofa with us here this morning. 6:20.
Now, the hospitality industry has faced a difficult time recently, from COVID, of course, to rising inflation, and new figures show that in the first half of this year, an average of 50 pubs were lost every month in England and Wales.
It's a lot, isn't it? Well, Nina is looking at this for us this morning, and she's reporting live on Breakfast.
To you both. Erica, since the documentary went out, I know the legal team say they have many new inquiries. Are you surprised by the response to the film?
No. Case against Harrods. Can you just explain what does that involve, a civil case? Allegations of abuse. They acknowledge that during the time the business, we failed our employees. Al-Fayed
between 1985 and 2010. It's one that seeks to put the welfare of our employees at the heart of everything we do. Now, Erica, I'm just interested to hear from you about the women who've told their stories and the challenges of reporting on them, how difficult that has been.
I mean,
this is the beginning, potentially, of a new process for them. It's certainly not the end.
Absolutely not. I mean, the aim of this...
Women probably thought they were the only one. They weren't aware that there were so many others with similar stories to tell.
Absolutely.
Heavy rain has caused Flash flooding in some parts of England, prompting road closures overnight, isn't being taken as seriously as it should be.
Yes, the Migraine Trust says that many of those affected are not believed when they ask for help at work or when they're accessing healthcare.
It's 23 minutes past 7. Now, if you've ever taken the tube in London, you will probably have used or attempted to use a tube map, but they haven't always looked like they look today.
It's not all that...
The story is being turned into a stage production, as Thomas McGill has been finding out.
...reason to ever be lost.
Yeah. I've been lost on the tube so many times, going round and round the circle, though. If you're about to go and catch the tube in London this morning, you never look at that map quite the same way again.
Now, we are looking at pub closures this morning as new figures show that in the first half of this year, an average of 50 pubs were lost every month in England and Wales.
It's a lot, isn't it? Nina is... Good morning, Monday morning. Welcome to breakfast just after 7:30. The programme today with Sally and John.
There was an almighty football match yesterday in the Premier League.
Yes, there was. I mean,
it's very early in the season.
We thought the real blockbuster was
it.
Saturday night at Wembley.
Now, after weeks of warning the public about the state of Britain's finances, Rachel Reeves will make her first Labour conference speech as Chancellor later today. It
comes as ministers seek to move on from criticism about political donations and winter fuel payments. Well, ahead of that big speech, Rachel Reeves joins us now live on Breakfast. And as Dan said, we will be talking about that throughout the morning here on the programme. But now at 6:40, nearly 6:41, John is here to talk about a quite extraordinary game of... You're on the normal roads this morning. It might be a bit... I got soaked yesterday. It was out, and you were camping. Yeah, it was a little bit damp, wasn't it? It wasn't the best camping conditions. That was brave. Yes. It might all be out of date. That was Sian Filcher reporting. Now, today marks 50 years since Ceefax appeared on our screens, the world's first teletext service. Now, does this look familiar? Ceefax was developed by BBC broadcast engineers in the late 1960s who found spare lines in TV pictures that could be used to transmit words and numbers. There was everything you needed: the news, the sports results, the weather forecast and the TV listings with just a few clicks of a remote control. Now, with all of this on offer, Ceefax quickly became a national sensation. By the 1990s, 22 million people were using the platform weekly, making it the most read news source in the UK. But of course, then the internet and smartphones took over and the service came to an end in October 2012. So 50 years on from its first appearance, Tim Moffat has been looking back at the history of Ceefax. More and more contacts.
I am indeed.
Indeed, for joining us this morning. You can watch that documentary. It's called Al-Fayed, Predator at Harrods. How they've reacted to this, acknowledging that they failed employees at the time, but saying that the company now is a very different organisation. Yeah, they say it's a different organisation to the one owned and controlled by Mr Al-Fayed. Between 1985 and 2010, it is a company that seeks to put the welfare of our employees at the heart of everything we do. It's coming up to 8:30. We're here till 9:30 on BBC One, and then it's time for Morning Live, and we can find out what Michelle and Gavin... I don't think Carol would actually love this, I'm not sure. It's a very quiet place to live in the countryside. A post-war nuclear bunker. Just Carol's cup of tea. 14 feet underground in Derbyshire. It comes complete with a bed, storage and a log burner, and it's up for auction. I'm not sure about the stuff in the cupboards, though. You're going to have to wait and watch for this, because our reporter, Sian Filcher, has been to take a look. Very atmospheric. What a gorgeous pub. Yeah. Very calm at this time of the morning. Reflective. Before the customers arrive. Yes. Right, it's coming up to 6:30. Let's check in for the first time this week with our teams around the UK to get the news, the travel and weather. Where you are. See you. Thank you. Tell you what, Carol, if you want somewhere dry-ish, maybe a little bit warm, we've got just the place for you, yeah?
The Bahamas?
Nearly, not quite.
Now, as a high school teenager, Brad Keller had no interest in music whatsoever. He'd never even played a piano. Well, after a remarkable journey this summer, Brad won the second series of Channel 4's The Piano, which showcases the UK's best amateur pianists, after he wrote an emotional piece for his foster parents. Let's take a look.